While the inauguration of President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu is 27 days away, conversations around the state of the nation that President Buhari leaves behind and that Tinubu will inherit have heightened. But in the midst of these conversations, there are several stories that have continued to capture the attention of Nigerians and need to be discussed as updates come in. So on the second half of tonight's show, we'll get into some of these developments with some of these top stories. Joining me now is political analyst Mayokun, and he's going to be going through these stories with me. Mr. Ilo, welcome to Politics HQ once again. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I think top of our agenda will be a story that has broken in just the past few hours, this early afternoon it was. And while we've seen presidential, National Assembly and state level elections have gone, it's the aftermath of the elections in Nigeria that continue to generate controversy. And one of those, of course, has to do with the Adamawa state governorship election. So the police has announced that they've been able to arrest the suspended Adamawa State Resident Electoral Commissioner Hudu Yunusa Ari and other suspects as well. They're now in police custody over alleged impropriety in the April 15 supplementary governorship poll in the state. And we know, of course, it was INEC that asked that the police look for him, arrest him, and if possible, prosecute him if he's found culpable as well. So, Mr. Elo, I want to start from there. Where do you think his arrest, as well as the subsequent investigation that the police are undertaking, where do you think it's going to take us? Where do you think it's really going to lead to?
Well, the process has to play itself out, although from events in Nigeria over the past election cycles, I don't hold much hope that much will come out of this. He's an appointed person in Nigeria. He was a rec. He did something that he shouldn't have done, as it were, following the rule book. But I doubt if there's any precedent that can make him go to jail for this. You know, there are so many lacunas within our electoral laws, within even the Constitution itself, that can be exploited. So him even coming out today, you know, some people said he was arrested, but from the look of things, he granted an interview with BBC early this morning, in which he said he was going to surrender himself. So most likely he surrendered himself to the police rather than being arrested, as is being said in some quarters. So that said, they will hold him for 2-3 days. After that, maybe they will charge him to court. But I doubt if much will come out of this at the end of the day. The important thing is that maybe the wrong that was done did not hold at the end of the day, because INEC intervened and the right thing was done, so to say.
So before his arrest, in this interview you mentioned, he actually did say that he had no regrets and claimed that he acted within the confines of relevant laws before declaring the APC's governorship candidate as the governor-elect before his decision was declared null and void by the national arm of INEC in Abuja. When you just look at the statements you made in terms of this may really in the end go nowhere, he believes he has the law behind him. There are obvious lacunas in our electoral laws and many of our laws, of course, as well, that will be exploited. What then is the point of this exercise? Is this simply for the police to look like they're doing investigations? Is this for INEC to look like they're being hard on electoral offenses? At the end of the day, if we don't believe that anything concrete will come out of it, why are we wasting time? Why are we wasting energy on this particular situation?
Well, it's not so much about wasting time. It's just that this process has to play itself out. Sometimes going to court, going through the harm of the law, is a way to vent. People have their opinions even from the day that the event happened. So people will tell you, okay, it's either you do it this way or you do it that way. But at the end of the day, everybody has to take recourse to the law. The police has to be seen to be doing something. INEC has to be seen to be, to be standing on their word. And at the end of the day, the man himself is a lawyer. I was reading some profile about him earlier in the day. He was maybe a classmate of the Attorney General of the Federation, having gone to the same law school or whatever with him. So these are things that point out to the fact that he's a connected man. He didn't get that position because he applied on the road. Somebody nominated him, somebody believed in his ability, somebody wanted him to have a payback or something of that nature. So it's Nigeria for you, but at the end of the day, if they could hold him with something, they would try. But himself, you'll be surprised, maybe 2-3 sons will be at the back of him if the stories we are hearing are true. So it has nothing to do with the police itself. It's just the system in its entirety. So if there is a pitfall, if there is a leeway where it can exploit and get away, he will do it. you'll be surprised that in 2-3 years' time, you have another appointment and you'll be smiling all the way.
So he wasn't arrested alone, but we seem to have very little information on the other individuals and officials that were also arrested in this matter, as well as the role they may have played. But I want to move a bit away from him and those individuals. What about the responsibility of the political party, particularly the APC and its candidates that was involved in this situation? Aisha Banini had actually given an acceptance speech based on the Rex announcements, but then she eventually did concede some days later when the matter continued to heat up. Where do we see them in terms of, even if it's not a legal responsibility, but a moral or ethical responsibility in this case?
Well, at the risk of sounding like a broken bottle, I'll tell you that in politics, there's little room for morality. So two people contested for an election. She saw an avenue to be declared the winner, and she took it. It's not in her place. She will tell you she's not a lawyer. The REC is an appointed agent of the state, and having declared her as the winner, she was at liberty to accept it, which she did. Although at the end of the day, when the push came to shove, she retracted and said, okay, if this is the way the stuff wants to go, I will align, which she has aligned. So I don't think she has actually done anything wrong, because it's a contest. It could have gone either way. Some people will tell you that this thing had it coming, because when it's remaining like 3,000-4,000 votes and the election was suspended at the first instance, only for it to be coming this time and say, okay, let's go and round up. It could have gone either way. We had the same issue in Osun State about four years ago. So this is politics, Nigeria, politics 101. So at the end of the day, it could have gone either way. So I don't really blame Binani for maybe her acceptance speech. It was a dream of a lifetime for her. So even though it was short-lived, I want to believe that maybe she will rise above that and accept the result in good faith and try again maybe another 4 years' time.
Okay, so let's say with legal issues now, but still, again, in aftermath of the elections that we've had in recent times. So the PDP's presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, believes that President Buhari is bullying the judiciary. In a statement that his team released on Monday, he faulted a recent comment by the president that says, quote, opposition lost the election due to overconfidence and complacency, end quote. The statement then continued to say, I quote, we have seen a pattern whereby senior officials of government are subtly bullying the judiciary to submission, end quote. But we've also seen the APC accuse opposition parties of also bullying the judiciary as well. So what should we make of all of this? Is our judiciary bullyable? Let me use that word, because it seems so many people are rising to their defense that they're being bullied from all different quarters.
Well, I think the judiciary has held its own over time. I don't think anybody can really bully them. They are not little kids, as it were. But the judiciary itself, as an arm of government, has to be protected, and the protection comes from all and sundry. When we have disagreements and we go to court, we should swear, we should abide by the rulings of the court, especially when it's coming from the highest court in the land. They are not infallible, but we have put them in that position so that whatever judgment they comes up with, reasoned judgment anyway, we should be ready to abide by those judgments. So those are the issues for me. Atiku should not expect Buhari to be centrist, not to have an opinion. He's the president, but he's the leader of a political party which has won an election. He tried his best leading to the election to be seen as being above board. He was telling everybody, vote for whoever it is you want, even at the risk of alienating people from his own party. So having won, he was happy that, okay, at least my legacy for whatever is worth, my party is still being trusted with another 4 years. So that is his position. So Atiku now saying that is tantamount to bullying the judiciary, I beg to disagree. Those who are bullying the judiciary are those who are putting the names of justices and those in charge of our laws on social media, or telling us where their children are schooling, or trying to make them think as like, okay, if it doesn't go our way, that means you've been bribed. No, they are entitled to their opinions, and they have to be afraid of God. They are not supposed to be afraid of individuals or whoever it is that they are making judgment against or for. That's how the law goes.
So interesting enough, this statement from the presidential candidate of the PDP comes just 27 days to the handing over of Buhari's administration to President-elect Tinubu. It also comes with the Presidential Elections Petition Tribunal yet to formally sit on some of these petitions that are challenging Tinubu's victory at the polls. So there's been a lot of conversation about making sure that the tribunal is aired live, is transmitted live for Nigerians to be able to see and have trust in the process and all of that. But when we look at the fact that we're now 27 days to the official handing over, the tribunal has not sat, there's a very interesting likelihood that no election victory will be overturned if we're looking at several precedents in Nigeria's past. What do we make of that? Because there's been this pressure that the tribunal should use whatever time available to sort all these issues before the handing over. But here we are, 27 days to that, and yet no formal, at least sitting, that starts the process.
Well, what I can say to that is the fact that most of these politicians, it's like telling you something should happen when they are in the opposition. The moment they get power, they forget every other thing that they are talking about. Atiku has been in government since 1999. He has been the vice president. The 8 years of his presidency, co-presidency with Chief Obasanjo, what kind of electoral progress did he make that we now wants to reap, you know? He was there. He didn't see anything wrong in elections holding 60 days before swearing in. He didn't have any problem with saying, okay, nobody should be sworn in until the tribunals have sat. It happens in some other countries. These things can be done within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and tribunals maybe has happened in Kenya. But Nigeria is not set up like that. And everybody has been living with that reality for a while. But if you find yourself on the opposite side, that's when you now start agitating that things should be changed. You know, 2019 or thereabouts, Obi was with Atiku. They contested, they lost. They didn't make an issue like this. But this time around, everybody is saying that no, the stuff has to be explored before the president is sworn in. Nigeria wasn't made that way. Whoever it is that has been declared as the winner by heightened has to take the office. Then within 6 months, in fact, it used to last longer. It used to last up to 1, 2, 3 years before Supreme Court will adjudicate on the matter. But now we have had electoral reforms that said, okay, everything must be answered within 6 months. Maybe within the next government, the legislature, the Senate, or the House of Reps can come up with changes to the electoral laws. That's okay. This thing has to be done within 2 months. Meaning before the day of inauguration of the new president, anything concerning that election, whether the right to contest or the hula baloo surrounding the violence and the rest of it during the election, has to be addressed. So these are the issues, but it is not on this cycle. This one, the next president, the president-elect will be sworn in. The thing will go up to the Supreme Court, because I know that whoever lost at the tribunal will want to take his case up to the Supreme Court. And whatever the Supreme Court now rules, it's the fact that it has never happened before does not mean it can never happen now. It's quite rare in Nigeria, but it doesn't mean that if the Supreme Court so says that, okay, there must be another election, for instance, everybody, including the president, otherwise the president will be running with an illegality. You cannot you cannot run a government outside the dictates of the Supreme Court. You know, we've seen even governors running for a while. Supreme Court came and said that somebody who was like number 4 on the list is the one that won the Imo State governorship election at the time. Pronto, Uzodinma was made, because you cannot, if Supreme Court gives you a judgment, you can only appeal to God. There's nothing else you can do. So everybody should just wait on the tribunal and trust the process. Judgment is what you are expecting. It's not really justice. Because at the end of the day, whoever it is that is on the losing side of judgment, we think he has not been given justice. So, but the important thing is that when it comes, you must have faith, because if you don't have faith in the judiciary, we are looking for anarchy. Nobody wants whatever is happening in Sudan to bring itself in Nigeria.
Very true, very true. So let's move from one presidential candidate to the other. And now it's the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, who has acknowledged that there was a private conversation between him and the founder of the Living Faith Church Worldwide, Bishop David Oyedepo, but he refuted what has come out. Now, he refuted describing the presidential election as a religious war, but he did admit to consulting with the religious leader, but not to referring to the elections as something to be considered a religious war. So this admission is just coming out just about 24 hours ago, and we know how much Nigerians have talked about the audio tape. The leaked audio tape has brought up many issues around, of course, personal safety, security, privacy rights as well, how that tape got out, quote unquote, into public. But we had different responses from his team. Some saying straight out, we were told right here on Politics HQ that that recording was a deep fake. There were those who said, okay, yes, the conversation happened, but it wasn't like this. But now the presidential candidate himself has said, yes, there was a conversation. Yes, I appealed to him, but no, I did not describe the situation as a religious war. This is weeks after all the, I'll use the word you used earlier, hoopla-blue or halla-blue about this situation. Weeks after that, now he's making an admission. What do you make of this?
Well, I want to give him the benefit of doubt. You know, nobody is perfect, but that audio tape or audio recording wasn't fake. It wasn't AI generated. It was real. He actually made those statements. I've listened to various AI-generated audio deepfakes and the rest. This is not one of such. And, you know, Mr. Obi can be quite colorful with language. He can be quite evasive sometimes without necessarily maligning him. But I've known him. He's a normal, typical Nigerian politician, you know, despite the obvious. He has some good sides to him, but he also has some weakness, which people have identified over time. One of them is the propensity for speaking out of turn, for making some unwarranted comparisons, or maybe describing himself in some terms, like telling you I've been wearing the same shoe for 15 years and the rest of it. So I put this in that same basket that okay, in the time of trying to appeal to a man of God, given the urgency of the situation, he used some terms that he would not ordinarily use, So maybe the thing just jumped out of his mouth at the time. Like, this is a religious, he shouldn't have used war. I listened to it. This is something that we think you needed the members. Even the man himself was careful, because people who go to church, people who go to mosque, they too are educated. People have disagreed with their religious leaders in Nigeria, for a long time. So I'm not at liberty to listen to any religious leader. The man too came that actually people from different political and religious leanings come to him for advice. So he gives them advice. It's not one party or another party. So, but this one actually happened. Thank God, at the end of the day, he said, I'm not a religious bigot. I'm not a tribal bigot. So we give him that benefit of doubt. But I think the thing actually happened.
So when we look at how this audio take came out, it was an exclusive for an online media organization here in Nigeria. The issues around privacy, how it was recorded, how it was leaked, are also issues that surround this conversation. At somebody of Peter Obi's status, a presidential candidate, a main presidential candidate in a highly contested election, do you have any concerns about issues around privacy, around the fact that such a conversation did leak, and how many other conversations of other candidates could be out there, just someone waiting for the quote-unquote right moment to leak them?
Well, I had my concerns when the stuff happened. Beyond the content of that, everybody is scared. Is it that the deep state is listening on our conversations? Is it what do you call these Nigerian Telecommunications Commissions? Are they listening on conversations? Are the telcos, the telecoms companies of Nigeria, are they listening in on our conversations? I know your tests can be seen and the rest, but our conversations should be private as they are. So, but the only person that can actually give us a good argument around it is Peter Obi himself, But one of his lieutenants came out and said, okay, we know who actually leaked that conversation. But because of the need to cover up the conversation itself and say it's either fake or it was doctored, they couldn't pinpoint the issues. Because ordinarily, if your conversation was doctored, you could sue the Telecommunications Commission, you could sue the networks themselves. But if it's an inside job, for instance, maybe one of the PAs or somebody who's listening on that conversation, but people they don't even want the investigation, so you will not know It's the same thing that happened with Peter Obi when he traveled to London. It was in his interview of yesterday or thereabout that he was saying, I was not detained. But at that time, you were not giving us the whole facts. Even now, you are still not giving us the whole fact. Somebody of that status, we should have access to what actually happened, because when it happened, the first argument was that Nigerian government is setting him up. They have issued his identity to some other people who are now like maybe co-creating him and running bills on his account and stuff and doing criminal stuff. At the end of the day, none of that happened. So those are the issues for me.
All right, so Mr. Elo, before I let you go, again today something interesting happened, and that comes from the House of Representatives, which has decided that they are writing the United Kingdom government in order to ask them to interfere in the sentencing of the Deputy President of the Nigerian Senate, Ekweremadu, and his wife, Beatrice. Now, this follows the adoption of a motion of urgent public importance that was raised by a member, Toby Okechukwu, during the plenary session of the House. Now, lawmakers are pleading that the UK court temper justice with mercy in the sentencing of the lawmaker and also urge the federal government of Nigeria to take diplomatic steps to intervene in his trial. The reactions have been fast and furious on social media. Many Nigerians feeling some type of way about this request from the National Assembly. What do you make of it?
Well, it's their rights, because the guy is, at least he's one of theirs. He's been in right standing in Nigeria, whatever we think about it. He's the politician, so to say. It's also a visiting professor at one of the UK universities. They just appointed him, and about a week or thereabout later, the thing actually became a public issue and they had to withdraw their invitation to him. So, but for me, he broke the law. Sometimes the kind of things you think as a powerful man you can get away with in Nigeria, you lose sense of proportion and you lose sense of awareness of, laws regarding country. You have been a lawmaker for like 20 years in Nigeria and you don't know that there are jurisdictions, so that is the problem for him. I just wish that, okay, maybe they become a little lenient because of the things that for diplomatic sake, Nigeria has tried to intervene, his lawmakers have tried to intervene. So they should not hand him the maximum sentence possible, but jail he will go. There's no going about that.
Interesting enough, you had said earlier that sometimes when we go to court, we're seeking a judgment and not necessarily justice. And I don't know if that statement might also apply in this situation. What do you think?
Well, it will get some form of judgment. The other guy, maybe whoever it is that was at the other side, he committed the crime. You took somebody from here for the sole purpose of harvesting his organ. When the organ didn't match, you could have let it go. But the typical Nigerian politician in him felt like, okay, he has to go back to the country, And the guy maybe has tasted life in London. Now you want me to go back to selling garri on the streets of Lagos, selling spare parts. No, I cannot do that. Somebody advised him, go to police station, and the rest is history.
But let me ask, with lawmakers asking that the UK temper justice with mercy and that the federal government intervene to take diplomatic steps, what do you think they're expecting? Are they expecting leniency in sentencing? Because we know that he will be sentenced on May the 5th with his wife, as well as the doctor, Obinna Obeta, who were all found guilty of processing the travel of a young man with a view to his exploitation after a 6-week trial. Or are they saying maybe because of his age and his standing in Nigeria that he should be allowed to return? What do you think lawmakers were really thinking or expecting with such a plea?
Well, I think they are looking for a form of leniency. It happens before sentencing. He's been convicted. Before sentencing allows family members, allows friends, allows governments to make a case. It's like, okay, we are going to punish this person. What is your opinion? Somebody can say, he was good to me. He wasn't like this before. He was, he did it because of his daughter, as Gbajabi Amila has said. So, but he's their friend. Things like this happen. Like, I can give you a quick instance. A journalist has been arrested in Moscow now, in Russia, on spy charges. US will say he's not a spy. But at the end of the day, 6 months, 1 year down the line, there will be a jailed person, a Russian in U.S. prison, that will be exchanged for this guy that Russia took. So at the end of the day, there's a tit for tat in it. It's just that Nigeria is not at that level, economically and politically, with Britain. They still see us like little brothers, and they feel that our laws are not strong enough. Because if this were to happen actually to a U.S. lawmaker, U.S. will say, give this person back to us. We punish him in our own way. But all the things that are being done, and our law, our systems, EFCC, ICPC, never saw any of that. This guy has amassed wealth on becoming of somebody of his status. Nigerian law doesn't see anything wrong in it. This guy was given permit to travel. There is no record of it anywhere on our on our MDAs, agencies responsible for this thing, the one looking for trafficking and the rest of it. They never caught up to it. So UK is okay, what do you want us to do? We have done our job. You can be sure that UK, before they reached this conclusion, they came to Nigeria, sent some of their detectives to Nigeria to come and do investigations. So this will form part of the judgment at the end of the day. How did Nigeria help them? Maybe not much. So that is the strength of our convictions. And if you now ask them to do something, they might decide to disregard it altogether, or they might just listen and shave off 1 year or two from his jail term.
All right. Mr. Elo, thank you so much. I know we're all counting down to the end of the Buhari administration. We're taking score, we're taking records as well. So conversations around the outgoing administration and the new incoming administration will dominate. But even in the midst of that, there are still a number of stories that we need to constantly touch base with. Thank you so much for your time and joining me on Politics HQ tonight.
Thank you for having me.
All right. It is 27 days till President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu is expected to be sworn in and assume the mantle of leadership here in Africa's largest economy and the world's most populous black nation. But in the lead up to that, there are still political and, of course, social, economic stories that will be dominating the headlines just as much as the fact that President Muhammadu Buhari is wrapping up 8 years and he's handing over to a fellow party member. So in the midst of all of these handing overs and the looking to the swearing ins and, of course, the scorecards that will be given for the Buhari administration, as well as the checklist that will be given to the Tinubu administration, we'll continue to bring you the biggest political stories here in Nigeria. And this is where we draw the curtain on tonight's show. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. Many thanks for watching. I'm Tolulope, Adeleru-Balogun. Good night.